All right. Hi, Adam. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for joining me today in the Forestry Source. I am both the Director of Publications and a landowner in Virginia, and I just attended the Landowner Wood and Wildlife Conference in Culpeper. I got to meet Adam Downing there in person, and I roped Adam in to this interview with me for the Forestry Source. So, Adam, for those who haven't met you like me, tell us, what is your job?
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. Always a pleasure to talk with someone from SAF and connect with other professionals in the association. So my job is I'm a field-based extension forestry agent in the Northwest District or area of Virginia. So I serve sort of the northern Piedmont of Virginia as well as the Shenandoah Valley, two beautiful areas full of wonderful landowners.
And how did you become involved in this annual landowners conference?
Well, I started in this role in 2001, and previous to that, I was in a similar position in Northwest Pennsylvania. Interesting, from Northwest to Northwest, but my predecessor there had started an event just like this, and I inherited that, and I liked it, and I thought when I came to Virginia in this role, I was the first person in the role, and so I was starting from scratch. And it seemed to me a good possibility as a way to meet a lot of people, and for a lot of people to meet extension and know that extension is present in the field as far as extension goes, and get there's a lot of landowners throughout Virginia, but particularly in the area that I work, and so meeting landowners on smaller workshops is good, but it's nice to have a big venue. And so I started in 2003 simply as a way to reach more landowners.
And so then how many years has this event been going on then?
Yeah, so we just had our 19th annual. I think one year we had to cancel it because of severe weather, snow, but it's been every year for 19 years.
Wow. And then what is your role, your day job? What's your role? I guess I know it's not just during the event. What's your role around the event?
Right. Yeah. So I certainly don't do this in a vacuum. I always, with any programs that we do with landowners in particular, but with our other audiences in extension, always work with others who have different angles and insights on issues and situations and how we can address those in an educational setting. So the committee that I tend to work with are resource professionals from the public sector. Soil and Water Conservation District, Department of Forestry, Department of Wildlife Resources. I also try to have a landowner representation and some industry or private business, such as a consulting forester involved. And so we simply sit around a table, I convene it, and we brainstorm ideas, and then we start making connections and make it happen. So my role, I guess, is kind of the instigator and wrangler.
The chief instigator. I think we're going to get to some those ideas that you all are brainstorming. We'll get to that. Jennifer, can you tell us what is your day-to-day job?
Yeah, I am a extension faculty member in the Department of Forest Resources and Environmental Conservation at Virginia Tech. And my main job is to coordinate the Virginia Forest Landowner Education Program, which is statewide program, and I work very closely with Adam and his three colleagues to offer educational programs for forest landowners, and they are my primary audience that I work with.
Oh, perfect. So we're talking about exactly the events that you work on. So I understand that you have an event in your part of Southwest Virginia. Tell us about that event.
Yeah, so I handle the registration for Adam's event.
Oh,
and every year we were having wait lists of 20, 30 people. I had people calling me and bribing me, offering to buy me dinner in Culpeper if I let them get into this event. And so I really felt like there was a need to offer more of these events. And so in 2018, I started the planning process with Adam's Southwest Virginia counterpart, Bill Worrell, to offer one in this part of Virginia, which we're pretty far away from Culpeper. So I figured it was, geographically a good location to have it. So we had our first one in February of 2019. I got one in 2020. We did a virtual one
Right.
in 2021, and then we've had 2 in Withville.
Okay, great, perfect.
Very
So-
similar.
Oh, sorry.
I was
go
gonna say
ahead.
very, very similar format to what Adam does. I completely copied him on that
I
part.
just- So Adam, when you're brainstorming with those, that committee that you mentioned, how do you all identify your topics, the subjects that you want to cover? And then the next step going from there would be how you identify the subject matter experts in those subjects that you want to invite at your event.
Yeah, so we literally go around the room and just start throwing ideas out. We tend to write them on a whiteboard. And I do try to categorize and challenge our planning committee to think of subjects that have a particular relevance to either small acreage owners or large acreage owners, or it may bridge both. But I want there to be content that's relevant to that breadth of an audience.
Okay.
And so we just go around the room and start putting ideas together, and then we do some ranking and voting, a little simple process, and come up with our top topics. And then we go back to those topics and think of who might be able to present. And sometimes we table one because we can't think of a presenter for a subject. And so it just sort of organically evolves that way.
Okay, so you're thinking of some different audience types. And do you hear from those large landowners or small landowners? Do they help contribute ideas with their problems throughout the year?
Yeah, so early on, I always had a landowner involved in the planning, and then that sort of fell away. But this past year, we did have one. I think you met him, Jeff Green.
I did.
And he was very interested in getting a particular topic there, which was on bluebirds. And so he got that speaker, and it was a well-attended concurrent session. So the value of having the diverse committee is that it's a committee made up of, in most cases, people who work with landowners, either on the private side or public side. And so day in, day out, they're interacting with landowners.
Right.
And so they understand the issues, the challenges, but they also have that resource expertise to be able to frame it in a way that we can positively affect something or address something. So some topics come up every year as potential ideas. So we also keep handy the past couple of years to see how recently we had a talk on a given subject, such as how to sell timber. It's an important one to have, but not every year, maybe every few years.
Right. All right. And Jennifer, I see you nodding your head, some similarities there. So how do you select your program for your events, your content?
Yeah, same way. I have a planning committee as well, made up with many of the same folks representing agencies that Adam mentioned. I do not have a landowner. Since we've moved locations, we moved from Roanoke to Withville. My planning committee makeup has changed slightly, and it's pretty heavily towards the Virginia Department of Forestry right now. So I've been working on trying to diversify our planning committee a little bit, and I really need to get another landowner on there to add some ideas. But yeah, we go through the same kind of process, any hot topics that we've been hearing about throughout the year, and then trying to identify speakers for those. And there are some things that we do every year. I guess there's one topic that we have every year. It's a Meet the Professionals panel. And we have representatives from wildlife, forestry, private consulting, and some of the federal agencies serve on the panel. And we have a set of questions that we ask them, but then we provide a lot of time for the audience to ask questions. And that session is always packed, even though we're doing it every year. So that's just kind of get to know who's out there and what kind of services they can provide.
Exactly. Right. Right. So those hot topics, Adam, what is the top hot topic that you see in your part of the state?
Well, we always reserve the spot right after lunch as a shorter session to sort of address something that is emerging or maybe something that we want to advance. In this case, I'm not particularly interested in advancing it, but it's a topic of confusion for landowners, and that was carbon markets. So that's the topic that we had this year, which was a plenary, or it was the full group. It was not a concurrent session. So yeah, Jennifer's point of, hot topics there, it's interesting. There's almost something that's new every year to sort of, okay, here's an opportunity to get that in front of some people. You wouldn't think it would be something every year, but kind of seems to be that way.
Changes every year. So Jennifer, what's the biggest hot topic for you in your planning?
I think, invasive species and forest health are always issues statewide. That's kind of the common thread among all of our landowners. So we always try to have some kind of session that deals with forest health. So this year we had an after lunch session. It was plenary, so it was for everybody on new invasive insects in Virginia, because we have a few that are moving into Southwest Virginia right now. But those topics are always very much, they're very interesting to our landowners.
Well attended, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So Adam, your committee determines the topics and you locate, professionals. What kinds of professionals are attending this event?
Yeah, so the professionals that attended are generally the speakers and the organizers, although there have been some professionals that just want to either, get some of the information themselves or take the opportunity to meet landowners, which is perfectly fine. One of the objectives of the event is for landowners to meet resource professionals who can assist them, whether they're from the public or private sector. So we welcome that. And the professionals that come span the gamut. We have consulting foresters, state foresters, soil and water conservation district personnel, federal people in Natural Resources Conservation Service, contractors at times, have had a logger involved. So anyone that has anything to do with forestry is going to be involved. Wildlife is always a topic, so we really try hard to always have at least one, if not more than one, wildlife professional there, and they're usually from the state.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some park people too, some national park people.
National, okay. And Jennifer, what kind of resource professionals are attending, both as presenters possibly or as audience members?
I don't think we've had a lot attend as audience members.
Okay.
Planning committee members and speakers, same folks that Adam mentioned. And of course, being in Southwest Virginia, the National Forest is right there. So we have a lot of Forest Service personnel. My opening speaker this year was from the Forest Service down in Asheville. But yeah, similar types of professionals.
And for those professionals who are speaking, Jennifer, what do you think they achieve from attending? How do you think presenting benefits them?
Yeah, I think it gives them a good opportunity to share their services that they can provide landowners with landowners, and actually spend some time, especially on the breaks at lunch, talking to landowners and finding out what their concerns and what their needs are. So it's a give and take. Landowners can learn from them, but you can learn a lot from landowners as well, and what they're thinking about and what they're struggling with. So I think it is beneficial.
And Adam, I see you nodding. How do you think your professionals benefit when they attend?
Yeah, that exchange of even just terminology is, I need that reminder. When landowners are trying to express something and they're not using the words that I would, first of all, grab a hold of. What are they trying to communicate? And so that's really valuable. I will always encourage, but I feel bad because it's always on a Saturday, but asking our resource professionals to actually spend the whole day there if they can, because it's that downtime that the participants really treasure, to be able to talk with them, sit with them at lunch. I ask our team to not sit together at lunch, but to actually go and sit with other people, and because the landowners really feel like they're getting their money's worth when they get to spend that kind of time. And one professional I didn't mention was academia. So Jennifer's on campus, of course. I'm not, but we've been really blessed with professors from Virginia Tech being willing to come out and spend the day with us, or part of it.
Yeah, that's a bit of a drive on a Saturday.
Yeah. And related to that, I'll say another group that I left out too are students. So I've started incorporating students to come help out. Students who are particularly interested in a career in extension, having them come see what a whole day long program is about, and having them help with some of the logistics. And they've been great assistants, and I think they've come away learning a lot. So it's good.
Good, good. Adam, with this landowners conference that we just had at the end of February, how do you hope that will improve forest management in your state?
Yeah. Well, if the landowners who were not already connected with a resource professional are now connected, that's a positive outcome. They'll
Okay.
get some input into either doing something that maybe they weren't going to do, or doing something right or better.
Better, right?
I think one of the big challenges we face is the idea that doing nothing is okay. And of course, that is a decision, but there are consequences, especially when it comes to invasive species. And so we try to orient our talks to something that is practical, that planners can either take home and either do themselves or get done by working with professionals. So making some changes on the land that they own and influence for the time that they do.
And Jennifer, for you, what do you hope your educational landowner programs impact forest management in your part of Virginia?
I mean, I think for the people who are new to owning land or new to thinking about managing land, it hopefully helps them get started. It connects them to the resources, the people, the tools that they need to take that first step. And I think for the people who are more experienced, we have such a diverse set of topics at these conferences. I hope that it gives them new ideas, that maybe makes them see what they're doing in a different light and do something differently. So I do hope that they are following through and going and doing something on their land, or if not, maybe at least it introduces them to our programs and they come and learn other things from us.
Right, right. Taking advantage of the resources presenting, right? So Adam, you shared at the beginning, this event has been going on for 19 years, almost consecutively, just one year, inclement weather. What has led your event to be so successful?
Gosh, there's a lot that I could point to, but if it weren't for landowners who were eager learners, then it wouldn't matter. And we just have landowners who love to learn and love to, spend time together, meet other landowners. And so that's what keeps me going with it. We get good speakers. We, do our best to have it organized and flow well, but if you don't have a room full of people, it doesn't matter.
All right, right. So Jennifer, with that room full of people, what are you hearing from landowners after they attend one of your programs?
They seem to really appreciate the wide variety of topics. And then just to go back to something that Adam mentioned before, they like talking to each other and they like talking to us. And one thing that I see often on the evaluations is that they're surprised at how friendly natural resource professionals are and how helpful everybody wants to be. Like, we truly are there to help them do things on their land, and they seem a little surprised. So I'm hoping that reduces that barrier and they feel less intimidated about reaching out and contacting someone to help them. I think it's a good way to break the ice for them.
Mm-hmm. Adam, what are you hearing from landowners?
They're just so thankful that people would take time and share their excitement. The people who are giving the talks are passionate about their subjects, and that is infectious. And so they become interested and passionate too. So I hear thanks over and over and over again. It's nice. Oh yeah, I'll hear some complaints about the room temperature or whatever, but that's okay. At least I know that it's
they were there in the room, right?
That's right. And I think, to Jennifer's point of the diversity of topics, you don't know what you don't know. And until you go to something and you see a whole bunch of options of topics, you're sort of, got blinders on to the things that maybe you do want to know about, but you don't even know exist.
Mm-hmm. So Jennifer, you've started your own landowner program, sort of modeling what Adam's been doing in his part of the state. It also sounds like there's other events that you have helped launch. So what can professionals do if they want to do similar events in their part of the country? How can they do that?
I think, first they need to think about a location, someplace that's easy for landowners to get to. And then what kind of venues are available in those areas. And then I would say probably the most important part of the whole process is getting a team together. Like these are big events. It's too much for one person to do. So finding other interested natural resource professionals, people who have different skill sets. So maybe somebody's good at, making the agenda, and somebody else can do registration, and just having that team of people together, and then having them generate ideas for what topics might be covered at the conference. So I would say number one, get the team together, get a great location, get a great venue, get great food. Food always helps and makes people happy. And also it helps if you're familiar with the natural resource professionals in your area, and you know who's a good speaker, and who's real knowledgeable about their topics, because that certainly can make or break a conference, having good speakers or not. So.
Yeah. And Adam, for those speakers who attend, or maybe they're not going to attend this year, you hope to them another year. But those foresters who are working with landowners, what is one piece of advice you wish your foresters were giving to your landowners?
Well, based on what Jennifer said earlier, I would encourage foresters to be nice. But I think that it's also as enthusiastic and engaged as landowners can get. It can also be overwhelming. So to package things, share stuff, but then back up and make it simple. Hey, let's just, take one step at a time. And so taking the time to sort of be able to key in on what maybe is a primary or priority issue for the landowner may not be the same as you as a forester, but that is an entry point and a hook. So looking for those sort of cues, I guess, and developing those relationships, which goes back to being nice. Everything, every business, everything in the world is built on relationships, and this is no different.
And Jen, for you, what piece of advice do you wish to give those foresters working with landowners?
I think listening to the landowners and helping them to get all of their thoughts together. So when I talk to landowners, I talk to them about figuring out why they own their land and what their goals are for the land, and then breaking that down into actionable steps so they can actually work towards achieving those goals. And so that's the advice I would give to foresters too, is people have a lot of ideas. They may not have the resources to accomplish all of their goals. So helping them to prioritize and sort through those goals, pick the ones that are achievable on their land, and then helping them to develop those actionable steps to get there. And yes, be nice. It's all about customer service.
All right. So my last question for you both. We'll start with Adam's been doing this for 19 years. Why do you do it? Why do you host this event?
Well, I've got personal and professional reasons, which would be that it's rewarding. It's a way to reach a lot of landowners at once. I think it's also a format that is in some ways more accessible to landowners who have never been to anything. It's a little easier to step into a room full of 150 other people than to walk into a room with 10 people. If you feel like you don't know anything. So, but in the big picture things, besides my professional goals, ultimately it's about helping landowners and getting them connected and encouraging them and inspiring them. And so that's why we do what we do, whether it's this Woods and Wildlife Conference or anything else.
And Jen, this is really what you're focused on: landowner education, landowner programs. Why?
Yeah, it's my job.
Yeah.
But besides that,
Yeah.
What gives me joy in my job, which truly makes me happy, is interacting with forest landowners. I mean, they're just great people. They all have interesting stories, and they all want to do the right thing. And so being able to spend time with them in any setting is fantastic. We do offer a lot of smaller programs, 10 or 15, 30 people in them. This is one of the few large scale programs that I do, but just to try to give them a variety of different types of programs. Like Adam said, this might be more accessible to someone who's a little bit intimidated. Just to give them a variety of opportunities to learn more about managing their land, and I get to spend time with them, which is great too.
Well, as a landowner and an SAF staff person, I thank you both for doing these programs, and thank you for speaking with me today. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.